Welcome back to the Leverage Lounge podcast. Now, today's guest is someone I've watched grow in real time, Corinne DeFilippis. So, Corinne, let's start from the very beginning. Tell us your story.
No, absolutely. Well, Mike, I always like to kind of start off just because right now I'm 31 years old, but a lot of people don't know that I didn't have, I would say, a normal childhood growing up. I spent a lot of my childhood in hospitals. And I say that to say I had to have an identity shift at such a young age. So when I was 4, I was actually diagnosed with a super rare tumor to the spinal cord. It's called a pilocytic astrocytoma tumor. It's 1 in a million children. It was the size of an eggplant in my spinal cord when I was 4. And it took 3 surgeries to remove the tumor. So I had surgeries at 4, 5, and 6, had to undergo a lot of hospitalization with chemotherapy, radiation, platelet transfusion. So that really was like my childhood. Now, what I will say is I am so blessed that I did honestly deal with that in the early stages of life because it's really shaped me on who I am today. And then I like to say I'm a walking statistic, right? So the tumor was 1 in a million in children. And then in my early 20s, because of everything I had to undergo with treatment, I was actually diagnosed with cancer. And that cancer was like a 0.5% chance it would come. So again, once again, it's just how do you identify yourself? And I like to say I'm a statistic, right? I'm 1 in a million. I'm the one, right? And that's how I choose to label myself versus using it as a crutch. So it's really shaped my strength with going through that stuff at such a young age. It's kept me really grounded, kept me really humble, because if you don't have your health, you have nothing, right? The material world, all of this stuff is great, but without health, that stuff is irrelevant, right? So I learned that at such a young age. Real estate, though, was not in the cards for me at all. I don't come from a family of real estate. I don't even really come from a family of true, I would say, entrepreneurship. I have family who's worked in marketing, social work, construction, been in the military. So I was kind of that first one to stumble into real estate, which I'll get into a little bit, and go into something that was unknown, something that we all know it because we buy houses, but we weren't in it in the business, in the buildup of the business, right? So early on in my younger childhood, I really wanted to be a marine biologist. I love dolphins. I used to know every species of dolphin that there was. I was obsessed with marine life.
I feel like every child wants to work with animals at some point in their life before they grow up.
They're great. They're the best thing ever. So went through that phase. And then I was a huge CSI, criminal minds gal. So I was like, let me go into criminal justice, right? I'm gonna fight crime. That's what I'm gonna do. I knew I wouldn't be a cop. I knew I wouldn't do anything in the military. Actually, probably wouldn't even be able to get in with my medical background, to be honest. But I actually went to UCF, was a criminal justice major. I actually interned for Homeland Security here in downtown Orlando. And it was super cool experience because I was working with the higher ups in the government. I graduated college in 2016, and that was actually the same year that there was a hiring freeze in the government. The same day I was actually given my job under the Department of Justice as a legal assistant, I was also diagnosed with cancer, that exact same day, 4 hours later. It's a word that scares a lot of people, but to be honest, it's just knowing what you know. What's the treatment? What's the recovery? How do you get rid of it? How do you move forward, right? It's all about how do you swim, not how do you sink. And so again, I had embodied that identity at such a young age because 5% of you is conscious mind, right? But 95% of you is subconscious. Once I recovered, once I got out, once I said I was in remission, I ended up just, applying to anything. I was like, I just want to get a job. I want to do something. And I ended up applying for jobs, and I ended up getting hired at this one job at an insurance broker here in Orlando. It was a boutique insurance broker hiring a sales agent, looking to scale, drive, all this stuff. I was like, why not? And I really had a good interview with the mentor that I had at the time. We hit it off. I didn't expect insurance, but I was like, it's a job, right? It's a salary. It's a position. It's going to teach me something new. I had to get licensed in insurance, which God, that was boring, but we got it. But I was the only sales agent. So at the time I thought, okay, well, that just means I'm going to take all the inbound stuff. And my mentor at the time was like, nope, you actually have to go call people and get business. And I'm like, what the heck? I've never done this my whole life. What do you mean call? Because I worked in retail, restaurants, but I've never done sales. So I ended up just cold calling realtors and lenders. I wasn't even given lists. It was just go flow, right? So I went on Zillow because of course that's where you could find all local realtors and lenders, and I would just call them. I also created a super big LinkedIn funnel. I had about 5,000 connections, and I would DM people every single day. And I grew a lot of really good business from that. And I ended up realizing I was actually pretty good at forming relationships with strangers through the phone based off of just, being myself and building that rapport. So I did so good at the time, but there was an income cap, right? Like he knew at the time he could never pay me what I could make in a different position. So my boss at the time was actually the one who licensed me in real estate. I wasn't even at probably like the best financial position to go off into real estate. We were all in shock. Like, what is it? What do you do? How do you do this? The good news is I, of course, built some relationships in the real estate industry that I was able to ask people questions. But all I knew is, okay, well, I was cold calling people here. So now I'm just going to cold call people there, right? Like, how hard can it be? Like, this is going to be fun.
You called yourself a walking statistic early in the beginning of your story. And in my mind, I rephrase that because a walking statistics can mean anything. It could be good, bad, and everything in between. But what your story is more of a blessing. And so I'd call you, rather than a walking statistic, I call you a walking blessing.
Love that.
And it is something that allows people to see the goodness that's been placed in your life, as opposed to just the odds that you had to overcome, right? Because we don't just focus on the challenges that we overcame. We focus on the fact that we overcame. There was something in your spirit that said that this is not going to stop me. The drive that you had, even before you got into real estate, it speaks to who you are. And so I just want to kind of reframe that for you as well. But I want to get into some of the aspects of your business. One of the things that sets your business apart is your range. The fact that you go luxury home, short-term rental, off-market deals, new construction. I mean, you cover it all. So how do you maintain excellence across those different specialties without losing focus or burning out?
That's a great question. It is still niched in because currently mine and the team's specialty is helping to sell homes that failed to sell the first time. So expired listings and geofarming is really our niche. So we stay very focused on that because there is honestly such a tremendous amount of opportunity. And there's so many people who need to be served. There's so many people who had a goal to sell their house and it failed. And we get to come in, assess, and be honest with people, meaning we don't take all listings.
So 88 homes closed in 1 year. That's like elite volume. And I know from experience that that doesn't happen by accident. So let's talk about the systems. Let's talk about the daily rhythms that makes that volume sustainable. Talk to us about this schedule and what this looks like on a step-by-step basis.
When you're in the 9 to noon jungle, be intentional, right? So if you're trying to call people with intention. So there are ways to have intentional buyer leads that have a higher chance of buying. This section that we get into is expired. So they already raised their hand saying, I want to sell. We're not calling into the blind, right? We are very intentional of who we're calling, and we're doing that for 3 to 4 hours a day. And we know the numbers that we need to reach to have the conversations that we need to have the appointments that we need to get to be able to consistently follow that for 5 to 6 days a week, right? And from that in the afternoons, that's when the rest of business happens. That's when the rest of real estate happens. What I love about this business model is you already got done with 2 of the things most people like to push off to the end of the day, where they end up usually not doing it, which is either like a workout or some version of a walk, and then your calls, right? So our days could be done at noon if needed. So the afternoon is really set for coaching, appointments, market analysis, market emails, reaching out to clients, handling inspections, handling appraisals, handling all the other fires that come in real estate. They don't come until afternoon because I control that, because we set that boundary. We set that boundary to not be interrupted because that's our dollar productive making time. The goal is they know that if they make X amount of calls per day and talk to X amount of people to get 1 listing appointment a day, that's the goal. 1 listing appointment every single day. Let's say you're on about 20 appointments per month. There's no way, and I mean no way, with the training that you get from me, that you aren't taking at least 3 to 4 or 5 listings that month, right? Once again, expires, for sale by owners. They've already either raised their hand saying, I want to sell a home. So it's not rocket science. They already tried to do it once. It's the lowest hanging fruit that most people are scared or don't want to go after, but it's the fastest way to make money.
I'm going to put myself in the role of an agent who's been in the business for maybe their first 2 to 3 years. And now they're going to meetings. They have, Corinne, we have life that goes on. I have to do other things that take up some of the time in my calendar. And so how can you expect me to lock down 3 to 4 hours a day of prospecting in the morning when I still have other things that get scheduled during that time? Are you just telling me that I just can't go to those meetings or I can't take those lunch appointments?
You're just going to switch up the schedule, right? Because at the end of the day, it's about your goals, right? If I was talking to you as a new agent and I said, what are your goals? What do you want to make yearly? How many people do you want to serve? How many houses do you want to sell? And you want to get to those goals, this is the answer to do that. There's no other way. You have to be in it 3 to 4 hours. And I feel the morning times are the best. And I do believe most other stuff can be pushed towards the afternoon.
So what's the expectation that you're setting for your clients? What does that conversation look like for them to understand that this is how you've arranged your business in this way and you will be available after 12 each day? What does that conversation look like? Or is that the way it works?
Yeah, I mean, it's setting very clear expectations with clients. Meaning when I take a listing, I let them know that we are going to have a conversation every single Tuesday. You're going to get an email from me every single Monday. I would say texting you probably every other day. If you need anything, call me. If I don't answer, I will let you know that I will give you a call back. So usually if they do text me during that time, I'll say, hey, I'll call you after 12.
So how did you build those into repeatable systems so that every client feels the same level of service?
Well, in regards to communication, I'm an over communicator. So I will never wait for a client to call me and ask for an update. I provide the update first. I empathize with them so much that I'm like, okay, if I was selling my house right now, how would I want to be treated? I'd appreciate an update every single day. I'd appreciate someone educating me and letting me know what's going on. Because how many times do you walk into things that aren't your profession?
What systems are you using in order to maintain? Because I can't imagine that you're manually sending emails, manually sending text messages, manually making phone calls every single time you have an update to all of these 20 or 50 listings that you might have on the team. What does that look like?
So leverage, scale, and delegates, obviously on the listings we have on the team, a lot of the agents were partnered and they're helping with the transaction. So they're handling a lot of the communication. Of course, on my own, I handle my own communication, but believe it or not, for the market updates, we really leverage, AI, ChatGPT for a lot of the information that we may not know. But truly, when it comes to showing them actives, pendings, and solds, I go in and I educate myself on that. That's going to help me have leverage to make sure that if a seller needs to drop a price or if we need to have a conversation of what's going on in the market, I'm aware. I don't delegate that off and I don't train my agents to do the same. If you want to sell a house, you need to know on a weekly basis what's going on in the community. Is there new current competition? Has something gone pending that should have been your house? Did something sell that's going to affect the price of your house? I don't delegate that off. There are a lot of other things I do delegate, but in regards to the consumer experience, to be honest, Mike, it is all me. My clients, when I'm on a texting rampage, like I will text, I will provide updates. I have behind me this whiteboard that shows me, actually, I got this from you, your top 20 people you'll convert in the next 90 days. That's right up there,
That's
right? So
the top 20 help list.
Yeah. And I am that person. You know how those people either have 1,000 missed calls or they have 0. I'm that person that has 0. Like I have a sense of urgency in regards to responsive time. And I'm just really good at prioritizing and being strategic and problem solving.